No sneaking that in anymore. I don't know what kind of change that was. Anyway, I was just saying that this is a very important topic, just like anything else. In fact, when we go under contract with our buyers, the very first thing on Ashley's checklist as a transaction coordinator is to set up Radon. We want to make sure that that's scheduled and that we can get results back before our due diligence is over. Bruno's going to talk about a lot of stuff like this, but it's just a to-do list. It's not a let's talk to the clients. I don't even ask them their opinion. I just basically say we're under contract. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to order Radon. We're going to get that going. Utah Radon is our preferred company. They don't even charge you for this, and so there's no argument that's going to come up, right? So I blow right past that, and then I say we'll discuss it when the results come in, if need be. Okay, and then we go to home inspection, and we go to the other things that they might want to pick a different home inspector or whatnot. But I don't consider that like saying, hey, you have to use my guy. But when you have a preferred vendor for a reason, you've got a relationship with a company that's great with customer service, answers your clients' calls when they got questions and they go, I don't understand this Radon thing. One thing you guys are going to have is we'll give you a copy of Bruno's slides. He's got some really good information on there that's going to help you explain things, but it's not your job to be the Radon expert, okay? Yeah. Utah Radon, whether it's Bruno or anybody on his team, they're super, super helpful, and they're going to help either point your clients in the right direction, or they're going to answer their questions to where they say, oh, now I get it, okay? So now I'm going to just turn it over to Bruno and let him go through these slides, and we'll get you copies of these. So stay here the whole time. And Mary, I'm glad you said you're excited for this class, because this is good info to know as a realtor.
Perfect. Thank you so much. The other thing we have is we have the brochures here in your office. Mm-hmm. And so you guys, next time you're in the office, if you ever leave, the house because of COVID, you grab some brochures and then you can hand them, and that explains to your customers so you don't have to. So again, appreciate the introduction. So my name is Bruno Vassal. It is 6:09. We are going to be done at 7:09 or before. So that's my commitment to you. Owner of Utah Radon Services. So who we are is we were just talking, I think now the largest radon company in the country. We only focus on Utah, hence the name. And we fix anywhere between 16, 18 homes a day right now. And that's fixing, not just testing. And we were just talking how I think we're going to probably double in the next 12 to 24 months. So a lot of activity going on. And before this, not much was going on in Utah. And we're going to explain why, because it's like, okay, if radon's important, why don't I ever hear about it? So let's jump into the next slide. Objectives of the next hour. So number one, I can't see you guys. However, you can. So what I want you to do is just, kick them under the table if they start falling asleep. And I'm also looking for really bad dad jokes. So smiles, and keep yourself muted. So if you moan, I don't feel bad.
They are bad. So it's a token smile.
Well, and the thing is we've now done this. He's going to be like, oh, I've heard that joke before. Okay, overview. What is it? Why should we care? And again, why should we care about radon? Radon in Utah. We have to test for it. We have to fix it, which is called mitigation. Sounds like litigation with your lawyer, but nope, it's mitigating, it's fixing real estate and real estate transactions. Because ultimately, this is why you guys are paying attention to this is how is this going to affect my real estate transactions? And it should not affect it. As we were just barely saying, it's no big deal, easily fixable. We just have to address it in the final Q&A. And some of the things that we're going to be doing is, I don't think you've maybe seen this video before. So instead of me explaining to you what is radon, let me actually have the top oncologist in the nation for lung cancer. This is Dr. Wallace Akerley. He is the oncology, a lead of oncology for lung cancer at Huntsman Cancer here in Utah. And he put out a short informational video trying to get the word out on what is radon, because he unfortunately sees people daily who have been affected by it. So give me just a quick second to jump over to this. And I'm going to have to click on the YouTube ad. Hold on a second. So that way I can make some money. Okay, so we're going to be here, and I'm going to share the sound. And then once I start playing, if one of you can give a thumbs up.
Hi, I'm Dr. Wally Akerley. I'm a lung cancer physician at Huntsman Cancer Institute. Did you know you can get lung cancer even if you don't smoke? You probably know tobacco smoke causes most cases of lung cancer, but I'll bet you don't know the second leading cause. The second leading cause of lung cancer is a gas that you can't see or smell. You could even be breathing it in every day without even knowing it. What is this mysterious gas? It's radon. It's radioactive and it comes from uranium decaying in the ground. Radon can get into homes and buildings. 30% of homes in Utah have radon levels considered unsafe by the Environmental Protection Agency. But don't worry, there's an easy way to make sure your home is safe for you and your family. Just follow these simple steps. Order a radon test kit. Do the test and fix the problem if needed. Testing for radon is easy and inexpensive. It only takes a few minutes, and it's definitely worth it to make sure your home is safe. When your kit arrives, just follow the instructions and then send it back. Most test results will show safe levels. In that case, all you need to do is retest every few years since radon levels may change over time. If the test results show your home has unsafe levels of radon, you will need to fix it. Hiring a radon professional is the best way to do this. So even though radon may be the second leading cause of lung cancer, there's a simple solution to make sure your home is safe. Order a radon test kit, do the test, and fix the problem if needed. Make sure to share this message with your family and friends so they can.
All right, perfect. So let me just get back to the presentation. So what did we hear from here? He had, you guys are going to probably have to unmute yourselves, but he had a couple of different stats for us. So one of the stats, this other one. Sharing. I'm just trying to find the
Share button.
share.
See up top here.
Let's try this. Here we go. It's going to be this. There we go. Now we go share screen. You think that I don't know how to do this.
You've probably done this 1,000.
Oh my goodness. All right, there we go. We're back on there. And actually, by the way, if you guys want to take a quick camera shot or screenshot of this first one, this right here is a website address. It's tinyurl.com/urs.ce. You need to go to that website, and it's just a Google sheet, and you can fill out your information so that way you can get credit that you were here. So that's important. So. Okay, so Dr. Wallace Akerley, what were some of the things? You'll have to unmute yourself. So he said, what percentage of homes in Utah have, he didn't just say high, he said unsafe levels of radon. Anybody remember what that number was?
Unsafe level.
Over 30%. Or
Perfect, yeah. So 1/3 of homes. Now here's a little tidbit that you're not going to hear from your normal inspector. Do you think that radon levels are the same summer months versus winter months?
no.
Higher in winter.
Yes, in fact, by the way, our company, we do tens of thousands of tests a year. So I'm going to be showing you some maps with them. In the summertime, radon tests come back elevated high in the action level 17% of the time. And in the wintertime, it's 58% of the time. So just be aware that, you get a radon test in the winter, you have a better than 50-50 chance of it's going to come back high. Summertime, it's going to be less than 1 in 5. So just be aware of that. We'll explain why that happens. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just during the due diligence period, the transaction, it's really short. We need to know what's going on right then with the house. And in the summertime, it could be low. So with radon tests, we actually say to people on the report itself, you tested in the summertime, please reconsider testing in the winter months when radon levels are higher. So just be aware of that. Okay, so we're talking about radiation here. And one more thing, Dr. Akerley, I mean, he said that this was the second leading cause of what type of cancer? Radon.
Lung.
Lung cancer.
I have a really quick question. So I actually, we're buying a house and we have radon in our home and are having you guys install a system. So let's say that the level comes back at the, under 2.7%, but it's like just barely under. Would it make sense to have it tested then in the winter, especially since my husband works out in the basement?
You bet. Well, I don't know. Do you like your husband?
Yeah.
That's the question. That's the question. No, absolutely. So, and when we give a guarantee, or any radon company gives a guarantee, you hold them to it, and the best time to hold them to it is winter month testing. So if you ever have any questions like, is this working? Yeah, of course, go do another test. But winter months, and the EPA says you should retest every 2 years. So just plan every couple of years, testing in the winter months, and pretty much November through March is the best time to test. Okay, we're talking about radiation here. Did you guys know that anybody have a banana for breakfast?
I did.
Okay, guess what? Radioactive. So,
Really?
but not very much. So,
I only had one.
yeah, and I like bananas too. So it's like, don't worry about it. But actually, some of the food we eat is a little bit radioactive. When you go to the beach, of course, cosmic radiation, you're going to get some. This right here is a pie chart that talks about, okay, of all the different doses of radiation that we receive, what is the most? And it's actually radon. So you're going to get more radiation exposure because of radon than anything else. And this, unfortunately, is a national average. Utah, over 75% of the radiation is going to be because of radon. And why? Because Utah is 5 times higher than the national average for radon levels. So just be aware of that. So let's just do a quick overview. So congratulations, Jeff. You've got a listing, Walker Lane, 800 square feet, 1-car garage. What do you think about 3.9 million?
On Walker Lane.
Yeah, Walker Lane.
Just for the dirt.
And who do we have? Okay, so Mary, you've got the buyer. So the buyer comes in, and of course, hey, we need to do a radon test, and it comes back high, and your clients are saying, wait, what's wrong with this house? There's nothing wrong with this house. The answer is, what? There's a little bit of uranium underneath it, a little bit more than some of the neighbors. And as the uranium breaks down, it's turning into different things. It turns into radium, it turns into radon, and that now is coming up into the house. So what's the problem with the house? Nothing. It's just underneath it, there's a little bit of uranium. That's the answer. It's not because of nuclear fallout from the Nevada testing. It's not because of granite. It's not because of rocks or you're by the mountains. It's just because in this house, underneath it, there's a little bit of uranium. That's the simple answer. So radon is a naturally occurring gas coming from natural uranium. Well, who put that uranium there? Who, can we sue that person? Can we find that person?
Dumping ground, uranium dumping ground?
No, I mean, this is natural uranium. And so that's why there's nobody to sue. So let's jump to another horrible issue, and that's mesothelioma. So if anybody stays up late at night watching TV, Discovery Channel, you're going to see mesothelioma ads. Do you remember what caused mesothelioma? Anybody else? No? You're going to be a late night TV watcher. So the answer is
asbestos.
Asbestos, yes. So asbestos products, I mean, we had asbestos all the way up until the late 70s. And so what happened is you had people who were required to work with it. You had people who made it. And now there are billions of dollars set aside in litigation funds to then pay for that problem. So if you were to go down the street and ask people, hey, would you like to live in a house full of asbestos? How many people would say yes? Not very many, because people have heard, okay, asbestos is bad. Well, asbestos kills between 15 and 17,000 Americans per year. Guess what about radon? Radon kills more people than asbestos. But if you go down, right now, we go to Smith's, and we say, hey, what's radon? They'd say, I don't know, heavy metal band from the 80s. And so they just don't know. And the reason why, asbestos, there's a money trail. And so people are motivated to advertise about it. With radon, because it's natural, there's just not the funds. Now, the EPA has tried as much as they can. You know, they've got radon.epa.gov and stuff, but ultimately nobody sees that because they're not marketing it, because they don't have the marketing funds. So that is, we now know what it is: radon, naturally occurring gas, radioactive. We now know the why. Why don't we hear about it? It's because it's natural. And now let's hear the what does it cause. So going down through this, you can't detect just being in a room if it has a high radon or not. You can't smell it, you can't see it. And the only way that you can deal with it is if you test it and then fix it. And this is important to understand. This is entering in our homes from beneath, not from the sides, not from above. And when we start talking about types of homes, that'll make more sense. So let's talk about the radon health effects. So we are dealing with lung cancer here. So radon as a class 1 carcinogen. That's the highest carcinogen. I mean, you know, you get a block of plutonium, that's a class 1 carcinogen. Radon, also class 1 carcinogen. It is damaging the DNA in our lungs. So the radon itself is firing off microscopic particles, alpha particles, beta particles, gamma rays. The alpha particles, they go about 1/20th the speed of light, and it's actually a pretty big subatomic particle, but our skin can actually stop it. It doesn't go through our skin. The gamma rays, you know, goes right through us. Beta rays goes through us. But alpha particle, skin stops it because skin has some protection. Our lung tissue does not. And so that's why the lung tissue can be so easily damaged by that. We also have other tissue, our brain tissue and our nasal cavities doesn't have the protection. And so radon has now been correlated with more than just lung cancer. It's been correlated with brain cancer, leukemia, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. So we're going to focus on lung cancer, but I mean, in the end, high doses of radiation are good for Marvel Comics movies, and that's about it. You know. So the EPA states that 14% of all lung cancer deaths are attributable to indoor radon. And notice I say lung cancer deaths. You get lung cancer and your survival rate, just even 5 years after you find out, is really low. It's under 20%. And the reason why is that typically people don't even find out they have lung cancer till they're in stage 4. And I mean, you know, then it's just massive, you know, removal along other things. So 14% of lung cancer. So what, Jeff, put you on the spot. What do you think is the #1 cancer out there? Killer? Do you think it's breast cancer, prostate cancer? What do you think it would be? You're talking to the radar guy. I'm setting you up. Come on, take a wild guess.
Lung cancer.
Yeah, and those other cancers are very serious, but lung cancer, if you look at the next, I think it's the next 3 cancers combined, still kill less people than lung cancer. So of course, smoking is the #1 cause of lung cancer. And then you have radon, #2. There's not much after that. So for example, you know how we get horrible smog and inversions in the wintertime? The Utah Department of Air Quality estimates 1 person in Utah gets lung cancer because of the inversion. So that's not what's causing our lung cancer cases. Speaking of that, let's go through a couple other numbers. And 14% of around 150,000 lung cancers, we're looking at right about 21,000 lung cancer deaths each year in the United States. So Utah, guess what? Congratulations, we are the least smoking state in the nation. That's cigarettes. All of our kids are vaping.
Right.
Unfortunately.
It's just not tobacco.
But not the tobacco, the cigarettes. So least smoking, and we still have over 850 lung cancers diagnosis every single year in Utah. And to put that into perspective, guess how many car accidents deaths we have in Utah per year? About 275. So I'm not saying that all of these lung cancer cases are because of radon, but a significant portion of them are because so few people are smokers. And so when your client says, why should I care? You can say, radon kills easily more Utahns than drunk drivers, and probably more than just, all auto accidents in Utah. So,
Hey, Bruno, I have a question.
yeah.
Previously, I was under the impression that what happens is the radon radiates or whatever, the dust in the air, and then you breathe it in. Is that a true statement, or can it just go
Awesome.
right through into your system, like you were talking about, maybe brain or other things that you're not really inhaling?
No, that's a fantastic question. And here's the answer for you. So not to geek out on you too much, I got to keep this short, but there's daughter products of radon. Radon only has a half-life of 3.8 days, and then it turns into something else. It turns into polonium. It turns into different isotopes of lead and thorium. And radon itself is neutrally charged. And so the radon is not sticking to the dust. Radon won't stick to anything. It won't even stick to itself. So you have individual particles, and that's why it can move through the dirt so easily. And that's also why it can get into our lungs so easily. But once it decays and it shoots off an alpha particle, it's now a different substance. And you're now dealing with, you're now dealing with polonium or thorium, and those do have a negative charge. And so they will actually stick to dust, or they'll stick to lung tissue, and they'll stay there stuck until it fires off again. So the answer is, it's not the radon that's sticking to the dust, but the daughter products. I don't know if that's helpful. So anyway,
It's just the radiation from that really can just go right through and affect the lungs or the brain or other tissues. Is that right?
Yeah. And so as you have then these particles inside your body, and they're still shooting off these microscopic particles, the alpha particle is what is radiation. I mean, what is radiation? It is the breakdown of something and the shooting off of the particles. Again, alpha, beta, gamma rays. So yeah, great question. All right, let's keep going to this. So as you are dealing with real estate transactions, we're going to start talking about numbers. And numbers aren't scary. I mean, are you scared of the number 6? No. Or the number 18? Actually, 18 was a good year, but so numbers aren't scary unless you put it into perspective. So let's put some radon a little bit in perspective, and we'll talk a lot more during the real estate portion of this. So let's say you tested your home and it comes back at 4 picocuries. That is the equivalent dosage of radiation as if you were getting a chest x-ray every day and a half. So it'd be like getting 200 chest x-rays a year, and this is per the EPA, this is also the same risk as if you're smoking 8 cigarettes a day. So here you are, you're going to the gym, you're eating the right foods, and you live in a high radon home. You could be the equivalent of you're smoking even multiple packs of cigarettes a day. So not to put you on the spot, Mary, but are you willing to share, when you tested your home, what did the radon come back at?
I think it was like 6.7.
6.7. Okay. So, if we look at it, then 6, that would be about smoking, like 10 cigarettes a day, or, 300 chest x-rays. As we go up, and 6.7, what time of year did you test?
It was just like a few weeks ago.
Okay. So in the summertime, it could be very easily well over 10 in the wintertime months, and 10 would be the same equivalent as if you're smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So it's great to hear that you're getting it fixed. All right. So we now get a little bit more understanding of, all right, this is doses of radiation. Now we do have some homes that are in the 30s, 60s. As I was leaving, a customer called in, a potential customer, and they said that they live in Beaver and their radon tested at 102. That'd be like you're smoking 10 packs of cigarettes a day. So we need to help them out. Let's jump right into the next section, and what type of homes have high radon. This section is the number one reason why I spend so much of my time teaching these classes, because so many realtors have the wrong information. So let's jump right into it. So what type of homes can have high radon? I hear all the time on every single one of these agents saying, but but it's a brand new home. It hasn't had time for the radon to accumulate. It doesn't have cracks in the foundation. I mean, it's brand new. How can it have high radon? And the answer is this: you put on the final doorknob, and within 12 hours, that home is at the new high radon level. It does not take days, weeks, years. And that's why when we test for radon, we actually close up homes 12 hours before closed house conditions. And the reason why is because it's now at its normal new standard for that time of year. So can a new home have high radon? Absolutely. And what matters, if you look at the bottom of the screen, is how much uranium is underneath that home. So, and it could be actually, and we see this all the time in neighborhoods, that neighborhood and around it is actually not very high radon. And then a home or multiple homes get built, they're super high. Guess what? It was the gravel that they brought in before they poured the slab and the backfill material from somewhere else. And that's the thing that's high in uranium. So just be aware of that. So, okay, old home, exact opposite. So the new home is really airtight. The old home is leaky. And you say, well, how can it, if it's leaky, you got a bunch of air exchange. Well, in the wintertime especially, think about this old home. Hot inside, cold outside. And as the air is leaving the house, what is it doing? It's creating negative pressure inside the home. And that is actually sucking more on the soil. It's called the stack effect. And so old homes, new homes, if you have two side by side and you say, Bruno, guess which one's high radon? 50-50. So each is just as likely. So you cannot guess based on the age of a home. Now, what about, but it's got a crawl space. So on the left-hand side, by the way, crawl spaces are horrible. They're just nasty. They're a great litter box for cats and a place for raccoons to go die and for my guys to have to go fix. So we're crawling around in these crawl spaces. The good news is they're very fixable. Now, why would a crawl space have high radon? If you actually look on the left-hand picture, you can see it even has vents on the side. You're like, wait a second, it's got vents. Well, that's not enough. And if you think about it, where's the uranium? It's in the dirt. And what's between the dirt and the people upstairs? A couple of floor joists, plywood, and carpet. So if it can't get through, or if it can get through 4 inches thick of concrete, it's going up through there, no problem at all. Just be aware of it. And we'll talk about how to fix it, but there's just an example of fixing it. So it is fixable. So can a crawl space home have high radon, Jeff? Absolutely. Yeah. And this is the #1 slide. If you forget everything else, I don't blame you, but remember this one. Slab on grade homes can have very high radon, just as likely as if it were a basement home. Too many agents think, oh, it doesn't have a basement, we don't have to worry about it. That is wrong. Slab on grade is just as likely as a basement. And why? So you've got a slab on grade. What's beneath that slab? The dirt. Okay, you now have a basement. What's beneath that slab? The dirt. If that dirt has uranium in it, it's the exact same thing. Just the fact that it's 10 feet plus or minus means absolutely nothing. Not to overstate this, but we really need to get the word out on slab on grade homes. 10 years ago, and this is based on a Deseret News expose, so you can look it up on the internet. 10 years ago, a gentleman purchased a home in Olympus Cove. His agent said, slab on grade, don't have to worry about it, so you don't get a radon test. So the agent was giving radon advice, and 6 years later, he has lung cancer. And they said, you should probably test your home, and guess what? That home has high radon. So that agent's bad advice, and I don't think it was negligent, but I don't think it was malicious, ended up costing that gentleman his life. And it's just such a shame because he even asked the agent, should I test this home? The answer should have been yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Hey, I have a personal experience with this, guys. Condos that don't have a subgrade condominium, the first level is a slab on grade, right? I had 2 condos that I tested for my clients. Both of them had high radon. Both of the agents in that subdivision said, I never have ever considered testing a home that doesn't have a basement because I didn't think it could contain radon. And what Bruno's saying is it's just the lowest living level of the home, right? Wherever that is, could be the basement, could be above grade, but both of them were very high in this condominium complex. And Other agents don't know what you're learning.
Yeah, so please spread the word. Next one, but it's got a walkout basement. Fantastic. You can get to the hot tub so easily. And I bet it's gonna be great for selling. Has nothing to do with radon. So that walkout basement, beautiful feature in the home. Where's the radon coming from? Where did we say? Underneath. It's not coming from the sides. So just the fact that all four walls on the house isn't, covered by dirt is not going to affect the radon levels. Now, if you were to say, oh, well, I'll just keep the sliding door open and all the windows open, is that going to affect it? Absolutely. And I'd like to see you do that in January. I'd like to see you do that actually right now when it's 100 degrees. So, I mean, if we could just keep our homes completely aired out, no, that we would not have a radon problem, but that is not practical. Okay, next one. There you go. Here's your condos, apartments. We are in Daybreak. We're in Harriman. We are fixing condos all the time. And here's the scary thing. We fix one and it does nothing to the one right next to it. And the reason why is because when they're building these, there are things called footers that run that are supporting the bearing walls. Those go down further than the rest of everything else. And those act as air dams. And so when we fix one, it doesn't necessarily have any effect on the others. So it could be possible. You've got a townhome or condos where you have 6 units. You may end up having to have 6 radon systems on every single one because the one doesn't affect the others. So good news.
This is just out of curiosity for me. If you fix one of those units, can you legally inform the neighboring units that one tested high and they're likely to want to get tested?
It's a good question. And I mean, you start going into the gray aspect of ethics of can we share radon tests with other people? And I'm going to be sharing radon tests with you guys right now, but I'm not going to be leaving it on the screen long enough for you to see the addresses and stuff. So the answer is no, we don't, but we encourage them to talk to their neighbors, at least the ones they like.
It seems like morally or ethically you kind of want to.
Yeah, but part of it too, though, is I don't know, if somebody knocked on your door and said, hey, I did this at your neighbor's home and you probably have a problem too.
You mean like the pest control guys?
Yeah, you might be kind of like, so it's tough. We want to get the word out, and the best way is actually if, Mary, if we give you extremely good service and you're really happy with how we treat you and your radon system, you're going to be more likely to share that with the neighbors. And so the best thing that we can do to get the word out is to give a really positive experience. So good news, there are certain kind of homes that don't have it. This is my dad joke. Do you remember this? Do you remember what they are?
I think so. One's a houseboat.
Yeah, houseboat. Yeah. So, and by the way, I just barely heard that my houseboat slammed up against the rocks. They didn't moor it very well. So they're fixing my houseboat right now. Okay, so houseboats and of course, tree houses.
Tree houses.
Okay, so if your clients are selling those, you don't have to worry about it. Now, high-rise condos, all joking aside, the EPA says when it's levels 3 or above, you don't need to test. And here's why. What happens to radon levels as you go up from the lowest level and up above? The radon is cut in half typically. So if your basement is reading at 10, your main floor is probably going to be right around 5 or 6. The next floor up is probably going to be between 2 and 3. So just be aware of that, is that as you go up higher and higher, the radon levels are lower, which is why, when we talk about testing, that's why we test where we do. Any questions about any styles or types of homes before we get to locations? Anybody? Okay, let's jump right into
one question. What is a safe level? Like what's considered safe?
Excellent question. And the EPA's, and I'm not trying to spin this, EPA says there are no safe levels of radon. We do, however, the goal of the EPA eventually is to have indoor radon be the same as outside. Outside radon is right around 0.6, so less than 1 picocurie, so 0.6. And the EPA says our long-term goal is we want it to be down like around there. And I'm going to get to some slides after this, but for now, let's focus on homes that are 4 picocuries and above, and those that are less. And I'm going to show that to you, the results on the map, but I'm going to get back to your question in a second. So just real quick, the US radon is more prominent in the northern states, the northern half. And the reason why is 13,000 years ago, the glaciers came down, scraped away the topsoil, exposed more uranium-rich soils, and that's why we have it. The reason why I'm showing this to you is because I don't think you really care about radon in Wisconsin. However, we hear a lot of agents say, well, it's on the benches and it's just about the mountains. It's about granite. Well, Iowa, Illinois, Nebraska, those are flat as a pancake and those have high radon. Has nothing to do with mountains and it has nothing to do with granite. Now, sometimes granite can have uranium in it, but it has nothing to do, there's plenty of granite that doesn't have any high radon. So I just want to dispel that. It's not because of the mountains. It's just because of uranium in the soil. Now, this right here is from the Utah Geological Survey. This is just showing larger instances of uranium deposits. All I care about that you see is it's all over the place. It's kind of splattered, intermingled. So what I'm going to do right now, and I'm hoping that the internet connection is going to be good enough for this, is I'm going to show you some of our private maps from tests that we've done. And this is tests that we did between 2016 and middle of last year. And there's tens of thousands of these. And so sometimes Google Maps chokes on this. I'm hoping that this is going to work. If not, I've got some screenshots. Okay, let me zoom in. We're either going to see a bunch of big dots or I'm going to just go back to screenshots. Well, yeah, I think it's actually Google Maps itself, because my last few presentations, I kind of let in with this. We've been having a little bit more issues. It's just not loading. All right, I'm going to just go back to the presentation, and I'm sorry that we can't do this live, but I got screenshots. It's all good. Okay, so blue would be radon levels that are below 4, and red would be above. So this is just kind of a, you know, zoomed out. This just shows basically the Wasatch Front. Let's zoom in a little bit closer. So this right here on the left-hand side would be Tooele, Stansbury Park area. And on the right-hand side, this is, you know, the Salt Lake Valley. And what I'm hoping that you see here is that it's not just along the edges, or it's not just in the middle. I mean, that looks like salt and pepper to me. You know, it's just kind of all over the place. Let's zoom in a little bit more. This right here is, you know, there's the lake in Daybreak. So here would be Daybreak tests. So the blue would be under 4. And remember what we said? We said that 2/3 of Utah homes test low, because only 1/3 is high. So what should we be seeing most of? Well, we should be seeing more blue than the other colors. Normally, but again, there are areas that are the higher density of high radon. So if you look at this, you're going to say, okay, you know, I kind of see some blue, some other ones. As we go up darker and darker colors, if you look at on the left, 30 picocuries or more of that dark red. And if you're looking, you're seeing, I'm seeing a few of those. It's mainly on the west side of the lake there, and also on the north. So that's kind of interesting. So this would be then going up north Davis County. And in this case, North Salt Lake actually is kind of low. But then you now go up into just a little bit more. And what is that? What's north of North Salt Lake as you're going out?
Bountiful, Centerville.
Bountiful is actually kind of a hot spot. So just be aware of there. And if you look, let's see if I can do my mouse. The very furthest right test, this would be, in this case, it is right next to the mountain. This house came in at 82.9. So pretty high. Yet we go over, you can see my mouse, can't you? Okay, and then if you go over here west of I-15, this is now close to lake, 17.1, that's still pretty high. So again, it's not just on the mountains. This right here, looking at Utah Valley, Alpine is a real hot spot. And so Alpine, Highland, Lehigh, but as you then go south along the bench, American Fork and pretty much Linden, we're seeing a lot of really high homes there. Just FYI. This is the Heber and Park City area. Park City is about 50%, come back high. Heber about 90%. And the average in Heber is right around 12 to 15 picocuries. So be aware. So again, I wish I could show you live on this, but it gives you an idea. So let's go back up to the Utah radon situation. And as we said, 1/3 have high radon, okay? Some areas, as I just barely mentioned, have really high. And this is, let's start talking about numbers now. So the average radon across the US is 1.3. So remember, just outside air, 0.6, so about double that. Now, once you get above that, you're now starting to get into elevated states. So what does the EPA say? What does the Surgeon General say? They say, when you get to 2 picocuries or above, it's now elevated. And between 2 and 3.9, you should consider fixing based on usage. And here's what I mean by that. If you have a basement unfinished, and it tests at 3.5, not a real estate transaction, tests at 3.5, and you call me up and say, Bruno, what should I do? And I say, do you do anything in the basement? Do you ever spend any time down there? No. Are you gonna, any kids sleep down there? No. I'd say, I wouldn't fix it. Because remember, the next level up, it's half of that. And that's not that big of a deal. So we tell people all the time, it's not that high. You don't need to worry about it. Now, if it was 3.5 and you said that you have kids sleeping down there, would you fix it? Absolutely yes. And the reason why is because between that 2 and 3.9, that is still considered an elevated level. The EPA continues to say fix homes with radon levels 4 picocuries or above. So in real estate transactions, oftentimes we get it tests at 4.2. And the listing agent says, oh, it's just a little bit over. Well, a little bit over what? The action level is 3 times higher than the average radon in the US. And I'm going to say this sentence twice because I want you guys to really pay attention to it. 2/3 of all radon deaths occur in homes less than 4 picocuries. Wow. So let me say it again. 2/3 of all radon deaths and lung cancers are not because they were living in homes of 8 or 10 or 20. They were living in homes below 4. And why is that? Because now we're dealing with hundreds of millions of homes. And it is higher elevation of radiation. It's just not as high as the action level, but it is still causing damage. So that's why the EPA says we want to get it as low as possible. So is there a safe level of radon? No, but are we trying to scare people and for them to spend money if they don't have to? No, not either. So just be aware of that. So 4 picocuries or above. Now the World Health Organization, they have their own number. They have come out with 2.7 picocuries or above is what you should fix. So Mary, you mentioned that we're going to be installing a radon system. You got a guarantee, it sounds like. And what was that number that we guaranteed?
2.7.
7. So it was interesting because when I started this company, most other companies in the US only guaranteed to below 4. But there were a few radon companies that were guaranteeing 2.7. So I said, okay, I'll guarantee 2.72. And that has actually cost me a few times where we've had to go back and even install a free radon system to get it below. But we want to get it as low as possible. And so anyway, you're often going to see guarantees of either below 4 or 2.7 if it can be guaranteed. And most homes, we can, companies can do a guarantee. There's a few odd end homes where they can't be guaranteed because of
How does
something.
that
some
affect
anomaly.
the seasonal testing? Like Mary Guttler's tested in the summer, what if it's like 2.5, and then in the winter it tested back up towards 4?
Yeah, well, it depends on which company you got your system from. We give a lifetime guarantee. We come back out and we see what do we need to do in the winter time to get it more. Because this isn't just about installing a system. This is, we want your radon levels to be low. And so there are things that we can do. We can put on a stronger fan. Now, why didn't we put on that strong fan at the beginning? Because it's louder and it uses more energy. So it's like,
Get it where
not everybody puts a 600 horsepower engine into all of their cars. And so it's like, if you need it, fine, it's available, but gas mileage, other things, so you're doing less. Standard. All right, let's get back to why should you guys care? In Utah, the standard is if it's 4 or above, it needs to be fixed. If it's between 2 and 4, it still should be considered based on usage, but now it's a lot more negotiable as to who pays for it. Now, in the current situation where you can have giant holes in your roof and you can't get the seller to pay for anything, you may not be able to get them to pay even if it's above 4. But if we erase the last 6 months of craziness, the rest of history has traditionally been about 95% of the time, the sellers are the ones that are stepping up and paying for it.
And guys, just to reiterate what Bruno said before, this isn't your call. If it's a 3.8, you're not telling your clients they don't need to fix it. You need to find out what their comfort level is. And a 3.8 is pretty close to 4, right? And so let them make their own judgment call on what they want you to ask for the seller to participate in. Doesn't mean the seller's obligated to, but do your job to get the outcome that your client wants. Never step in and say, I don't think you need to do that. You need to say, how do you feel based on the information you've been provided?
Yeah, and if they don't know how to feel, just get on a three-way call with your radon company and have them explain it. Okay, let's jump into past these maps and let's now go start talking about testing and fixing. Before we go into testing, what is the radon law? So Utah does have a law on the books. The EPA left it up to individual states, and that's smart because Florida has very different radon than Utah. So what's the law in Utah? There is one law in the books. Does anybody know? That is disclosure. So if your client knows their home's tested high for radon, they must disclose it if it's not been fixed. If it's been fixed, it's been fixed. So disclosure. So sometimes we're getting people where they're the sellers, buyers came in, did a test, and then the buyers can't get financing, they back out. Well, they're now left to relist it. They must disclose or fix it. So we get a lot of people who call us, it's like, oh, I got to relist it, but let me get it fixed first. So just FYI. And it's a good thing that the EPA has left it up to the individual states because each of us have different radon situations. So they wish that there was more aggressive laws because again, like Colorado and some of the other states, Pennsylvania, very aggressive radon laws. Utah, we're behind a little bit, but we'll get there. So we test for radon, and the way that we do it is, first of all, we need to have somebody do it for us. So what's the cost for radon testing? And this is part of the new slide, so that's why I wanted you to see this, is the average home inspector we're seeing is usually right about $100, $150. But less than 50% of the home inspectors even offer the radon testing. And take a wild guess, our company came in 2016. Before that, what percentage of real estate transactions were getting tested for radon? Because it is an upgrade, most inspectors, if you want meth, mold, radon, you have to pay more. It's got to be low. So guess what percentage of real estate transactions were getting tested? And the answer is 5%. 1 in 20 homes were even getting tested. And so, I mean, of course, nobody's hearing about it. And why was that? Because if nobody's hearing about it and your inspector says, okay, do you want to get a radon test? It's $100. If I were buying a home 10 years ago, I'd say, I don't want to spend that. If it was a problem, I'd hear about it. So I wouldn't have even ordered a radon test. So what our company did is we decided, all right, instead of billboards and television ads and things, I'm going to put my money into free radon testing. And so we offer a free radon test within 50 miles of Draper. So I've got 5 different cars that run around to just pick up and set and get radon tests. And so let's take the cost of the testing out of it because you're not going to fix it if you don't know. And if you don't care, then you're never going to get it tested. So it's like, let's take the cost out of it. So because of this, here's the good news, is that some inspectors are starting to then see, you know what, I can offer free radon testing as part of this package. That way I can get the marching group to start using me. And so the good news is some inspectors are starting to offer free radon testing. I wouldn't hold it against them if they don't, because it's expensive. It takes extra time, but just be aware. So why am I sharing this all with you? Radon testing is everywhere from free to about $150. So that's where you got. So what are we doing is we should be following the EPA guidelines for testing. And let's just 2 minutes talk about what they are. So we're doing closed house conditions. Remember I said you finish that brand new house and within 12 hours, it's at the high level. Well, if you've got a house where all the windows are open in the entire house, they've aired out the house, and you start a radon test, that's not accurate. You're not starting in an accurate thing. That's why the sellers must close all windows and outside doors before they start the test. They can come and go, but they have to close the windows. Now, sometimes you'll get people that kind of cheat and they're like, oh, I'll open up maybe the top windows. What's so funny about that, it actually makes the radon worse. So it's like, that's karma. That's karma. You know what? You're going to hell, you cheated, and you actually made your radon worse. And so every single window in the house needs to be closed, because we're not trying to make the radon worse. We're not trying to make it better. We're just trying to test what is it during that thing. So the important thing about this is windows closed, even 12 hours before we come to test. And if it's a swamp cooler home during the summer and it's occupied, impossible to test. The reason why swamp cooler is just stuffing air down into the home, well, that swamp cooler is not doing that in the wintertime. And when you're stuffing air into the home like that, you could have radon of 500 if it was closed house, and it would show just outside air. It's impossible to test. So if it's a swamp cooler home and they're occupied, you can't do it except for if it's in the wintertime or a shoulder month. But if they need to stay cool with the swamp cooler, you can't test it. Central AC, totally fine. Totally run it, no big deal. And as we said, it's okay for the family to be home during the test. And it doesn't matter if doors inside of the home are open or closed. So just be aware of that. So what's the minimum time to test a home? It's a funky number. It's 46 hours, basically 2 days. And why is it only 46 and not 48 hours? It used to be 48 hours. What would happen is the radon inspector would get there just a little bit early. They read the test and then they'd say, well, that's an invalid test, throw it out. So they give us a little bit of leeway for scheduling. What we're trying to achieve though is a 2-day or longer test. This is per the EPA. And we need to get it done during the due diligence window. So just as you were saying, you come under contract, what's the first thing you do? Is you order a radon test, because that radon test is not a 1-day thing. It's multiple days. And so you're going to need to account for that. So
here's just a little hint, guys. If you do your inspection and not possible with scheduling to get the radon test back before that due diligence, go ahead and settle up on everything else about the due diligence, whatever discovery's been made during that inspection. And then waive due diligence, but reserve the right to keep the radon results in there. And it's kind of a compromise from the seller. It's like, hey, we're not going to bring up all these other concerns. We're okay with this, or here's our negotiate on these items, but we can't finish our due diligence until this comes back, just for the sake of your clients. And again, remember, it's a seller's market. A lot of sellers are not feeling obligated to fix much, but if you're working for the buyer, you owe it to them to try.
And also, I mean, they can still buy the house and then they can fix it after they close. Mm-hmm. And as you're going to see coming up, it's not that big of a deal. Who can perform the test? It needs to be an independent to the transaction. So a home inspector, one of us, and we need to be using approved equipment. So there are some home inspectors that they've bought do-it-yourself testers. They don't know what they're doing. And so if you have ever any question about, is this test legit? Just contact a radon company. We can look at the test and we can let you know what's the deal. So we're setting the test in the potentially lowest livable area. So if this is an unfinished basement, well, guess what? The new buyers, they could end up finishing the basement. So we're usually testing there. We're never testing in crawl spaces, because who lives in crawl spaces? We know that Harry Potter lives under the stairs, but not in the crawl space. So we're not testing in places where people are not spending. You are not testing in mechanical rooms. If you have an inspector that does that, tell him he needs to go get radon training. He doesn't know what he's doing. He'll be really happy with you. But nobody spends time in the mechanical room. Nobody spends time in, you know, the storage room. Now, teenage girls spend a lot of time in the bathroom, but we're trying to do it more in main basement rooms and in living rooms, in bedrooms. We're not putting it directly on the floor. Nobody breathes on the floor. We're putting it at table and chair height. And we're also keeping it away from windows and vents. So radon comes back high. Guess what? We need to fix it. And by the way, I have 7 minutes. We're doing great. So we got to fix it. And we're collecting air from under the house, not inside the house, and we're moving it outside. So we're actually vacuuming the dirt. We're sucking directly in the dirt beneath the house and not inside of it. Because if we were sucking inside the house, it would cause their heating air conditioning bill to go crazy and cause their appliances to backdraft. We need to do this cost effectively. We want it as hidden as possible. So an interior radon system, this is where the pipes, we've been able to find a way to snake the pipes through the inside of the house, maybe through a chase, maybe through the garage, maybe through closets. And the pipe is now hidden. The fan is in the garage or in the attic, and there's just a little pipe popping out of the roof. So benefits of this is, yeah, it's hidden from the outside. Now it could be maybe more visible. So you're seeing a pipe going up your garage wall. Not a big deal if it's the garage, but you would not want it in the middle of your kitchen. And cost for radon systems, it's right between $1,400 and $1,500. So unfortunately for us, costs have gone up significantly. Our materials costs are $150 more this year than they were last year. And the cost of radon systems have only gone up between $50 and $100. So, I mean, if you would have gotten this 2 years ago, we'd say between $1,300 and $1,400. Now it's $1,400 and $1,500. So we're really trying to keep the cost as low as possible. And radon companies typically are within $50 of each other. So if you get a bid for $800, that's a scary, I mean, yeah, I don't know what they're installing. And if you get a bid for $2,000, they're ripping you off, unless it's some weird house. Average install time, half a day, no big deal. So each of our crews actually installs 2 systems per crew. An exterior system, this is where we're not able to snake it up in the inside, but we're able to then pop out the outside of the house. If you look by the red rose bush, you can see that we started on the inside of the house and then we pop out. The fan is down low. It's hidden by a bush or a fence, no big deal. So it's also on the side of the house or the back of the house. It's not on the front of the house. And above that is rain gutter downspout. We could do PVC if they're really sensitive about noise, but they're about the same. And so it's just on the outside of the house. It looks like another rain gutter downspout on the side of the house. And again, about half a day to install one of these systems. So if you were to say to me, Bruno, which system do I want? Interior, exterior? I'd say it totally depends on the house. It seems like the more expensive the house, the more likely we're actually doing external systems. We've done a whole bunch of homes up in the colonies. And I mean, we're talking like $15 million homes. They're so huge, we got to put in 5 systems. And they're external because to go up through the inside would be a nightmare. And so, you know, we might be using copper downspout or other things, fan covers, but, you know, we can also paint it so that it matches the rest of the house. So just be aware, a good radon company is trying to hide the system as well as possible, as well as be effective. Crawl spaces, we are putting vapor barrier down, gluing it, sealing it. It's airtight. So now the soil gases aren't coming up and we're sucking underneath the vapor barrier and we're venting out at roof level. And crawl spaces are a little bit more expensive. It's more material, more labor. And so, you know, usually crawl spaces are between the $2,000 to $4,000 or $5,000 range, but it's not $15,000. It's not $20,000. You know, easily, I don't think we've ever done a crawl space that was more than $10,000. So just be aware there. New construction. So wouldn't it be nice if we knew that for sure we could hide the pipes inside the wall? If we can then put piping underneath before they even poured the concrete, We can with new construction. So some builders are doing this. We do, I think our company does well over 1,000 new homes a year, which is great, but there's a lot more than that are being built. And so I encourage your builders to do more and more, just build the system in. And the thing is with new construction, it's right about the same cost. It's about $1,500. Now the builder might do an excessive markup, but it's a safety item. So you can kind of beat them down. I mean, if they're charging $2,000 for a radon system, that's probably pretty accurate. They get their little bit of money and they got a safety item in. So radon in your deal, it's tested high for radon, dun, dun, dun. Now, if you handle it poorly, it can turn out pretty ugly. And so, we're trying to avoid this. Let's handle this. Let's handle this the right way. I think he went to rehab, so we're doing better. And so this is the last section, and I have 2 minutes to go through it. So remember in the deal, 2 and 3.9 negotiable. Most of the time though, let's say that you're the seller's agent, you can support your client. You can push pretty hard. Hey, we're not going to pay for it if it's less than 4. Now, if you're the buyer's agent, you can then push, hey, my client's really concerned and they need to get this done. And we're not talking about right now, current craziness of the market. We're talking about normal, which will come back normal. 4 or above, EPA says you really need to fix this. Because think about this. If your client doesn't fix the 4 or above, they're going to sell the house and it's going to get tested. And now they're going to be on the hook to fix it. So even if the seller isn't going to pay for it, they're going to pay for it eventually someday. They might as well live in a house that has low radon. All right. So, okay, it takes less than a day to fix. And again, the average costs, this is not a huge cost to the transaction, and your air quality is going to be better. We always want to test afterwards to make sure that the radon levels in a real estate transaction are at least below the 4. So last thing, in summary, all types of homes can have high radon, even slab on grade. So please do not guess, does this home, should it be tested or not based on the style or age of the home? Number 1. Number 2, you saw the maps. You cannot guess where are the radon levels going to be high. And again, most of them come back low. I mean, you guys have done so many tests with us. Are all the tests coming back high?
No.
No.
In fact, we got a pretty good record of them being low.
You guys keep doing it in the summertime. So it's like, you know what? The likelihood is it's not going to be high. Just get it tested and now you know.
Hey, one thing that comes up, I just want you to speak really quickly to the testing equipment, because one thing's uneducated clients will bring up sometimes is, well, how can you have the company that does the mitigation do the testing?
Right. And the short answer is it all comes down to ethics. First of all, it's not, there's no laws against it. And the National Association does not discourage it. And ultimately, think about other professions. So you go to your dentist and he's going to take an x-ray and he's going to read the x-ray and then he's going to fix your tooth. So if you trust that dentist, great. And so how are you going to choose your dentist? You're going to look at word of mouth. You're going to look at, other things, reviews on Google. Well, if you go to our company right now on Google, we have 740 reviews and we're perfect 5 stars.
Wow.
And so, we'd be out of business and I'd be in jail if we were committing fraud, because ultimately, if you are fudging radon results, whether you're the buyer, the seller, or the radon company doing it, that's fraud. And that's not cool. So that's how you can answer it.
Yeah, no, I love
kind of a longer answer. And also they are welcome to go get another, let's say that they get a high radon test from us. They're, go get another test and you can independently verify it. Most people though, they look at everything and they say, but what I love is those people that do retest, they verify it, they come back to us and they're like, hey, thanks for being honest.
Yep.
So with that, you had a slide that said something about the home kits. I know that there are a lot of places that do have those home kits. Are those at all accurate? So I had already posted on our new community's Facebook page just to let everybody know, like, you need to get tested.
Yeah.
And some people were saying, oh yeah, I'm going to get the at-home kit. And I'm like, I don't think I'd do that.
So the answer is this. Don't have them buy the at-home kit from Home Depot. And it's not that it's bad, it's just costs a lot of money. It'll cost $14 to buy the kit, and then they have to still pay for the lab fee, which is $40. They just spent $50. If they want to get a third-party independent kit, they can get it from the state. It's radon.utah.gov, and they sell radon kits. That includes the lab fees for, I think, $12.
Wow.
So, it's a do-it-yourselfer. You can't use this for real estate transactions, but, those kits are fine. In fact, when we test your house, we're going to give you one of those exact same types of kits that goes to an independent third-party lab. So that way you can see somebody else is checking our work. So you're going to see, make sure that we got below the 2.7 with another lab.
Nice.
So the answer is, if they want to spend a little bit more, $150 on Amazon, there's a really good electronic tester called an AirThings, and we use their pro version, which is $1,500, and those are accurate. So a couple of options. Okay, high radon should never mess up your deal. If you've got somebody freaking out, jump on the phone with us. We'll talk them off the cliff. And this is the very last aspect, and that is hopefully from everything that you've learned, everything that you've heard, that myself and Jeff say, hopefully you now are going to commit. I'm going to order a radon test for every single one of my buyers going forward, and protect your buyers, protect their families, and ultimately you're protecting yourself. So thank you.
Awesome, good stuff. Anybody have any questions on that? It's pretty thorough.
Yeah, Bruno, I just had a question on, so the fans, you have to run power to those, right? You have to get a power source to those. And on a new construction, you're saying it's about the same. So do they, I heard at one time that if you put the pipes in the ground and, I guess they put gravel around them and they're perforated, and then they'll run the stack up, to the roof without a fan. And sometimes that may be all you need, and then it'll test fine, but at least you've done something. But if it does still test higher, then you put the fan on it.
Yeah, short answer is this. Going to a restaurant, buying a steak that they don't season, and it's like, they kind of did 90% of the work, but they didn't season it, and it may be an okay steak, but just 10% more, and you could have had the full thing. So what I mean by this is what you're talking about is called a passive system. And they're trying to work on what I called before the stack effect. It doesn't work. And so the good news is you've pre-put in all the pipes, so you know that you're going to be good. The negative is it's not going to really help it until you actually activate the fan. So you're kind of betting on, if I don't have high radon and I didn't spend as much, well, instead of spending $1,400 to get a full radon system that's guaranteed, you now have $1,200 on something that doesn't work. And if we have to add the fan, we're going to charge more than $200 to have to go up and crawl in your insulation and mess up everything. And oftentimes they're not putting power up in the attic. So now we have to add power to it. And many times these builders are using plumbers that aren't certified for radon. And so they're putting the pipes out on the ends of eaves. And so there's no room to actually then add a fan. So now we're having to cut it, move it over. So we highly encourage do active systems, not passive systems. And it's not because we make more money. It's because they then are going to be good. We also hear a lot of homeowners like, I've already got a radon system, but they don't have the fan. They think they're protected. They don't test. And then, so we're activating a lot of these and we're seeing a lot of the problems. So
good.
Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, very good advice.
Well, great. Hey, you guys have been a great group. You've missed the Jimmy Johns, but I'll try to make up for you. And any other final questions or anything else you guys have? Because this was a great group.
Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. Really appreciate you. And give me the copy of this new slide deck. There's a couple of new ones in there.
Yeah,
if you can.
I'll need to create a PDF. I'll send it to you.
Okay. What is this in PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just send me the PowerPoint.
Okay.
Because I can convert really, just say that.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Either way, that is the one I usually upload to the website. But awesome, guys. Utah Radon, they've done a good job for us. I just make it part of your process when you're under contract with the buyer, just get her on the schedule. So you guys have a good evening.
One quick question on the CEs. So I went into that and I saw a couple other people, but you just sign in on that and you don't have to do anything else like send or share or anything, right?
Correct. So if you do it on a cell phone, you have to click the pencil icon to edit. If you enter in on a PC, it's just a Google sheet and you can, you can just do it. So, yep.
Do it there. Okay, great. Thanks.
All right. Hey, thanks guys. Great group.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Yes.